Hi, this is Nicholas Alexiou from the Department of Sociology and the Hellenic American project, doing a series of oral history interviews for our archives in Queen's College. And today we're very happy and very pleased and very honored to have a very interesting conversation with a Greek American who, among other things in his life, he's also an author, and he writes about the homeland and the life of an immigrant from Greece to United States. I'm very pleased to welcome to the series of interviews Mr. Theodore Pitsios. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation for this interview, and I welcome you to Queen's College and to the Hellenic American project. Let's start by stating your name and where you're born and grew up, and some information about the family's background.
My name is Theodore Pitsios. I was born in Tsagarada, Mount Pelion in Greece, on November 21st, 1941. My father comes from the village of Pitsios. Actually, Agios Dimitrios. It was a suburb of Pitsios time. And my mother comes from the village of Tsagarada on the eastern Pelion. I came to the United States in a roundabout way.
But where you grew up? In which of the villages in the Mount Pelion?
Okay, I grew up.
Or in Volos?
No, I grew up in Tsagarada, and also the major part of my life in the village of Labinou, which is a little bit farther from Tsagarada. It's about 10 kilometers from Tsagarada. It's a long, involved story how I ended up there, but as it turned out, my father was in the trucking business. At the time, they were constructing a new road going through the area, and my father, with his truck, was transporting construction materials. And just before, while the war was starting, the contractor who was doing that section of the road went bankrupt. And the only way my father could get what was owed to him was to get an olive grove in the village of Labinou and some other property in that village, which the contractor himself had gotten as payment from some industrialist in Volos. As it turned out, that was a very fortunate move, because soon after my parents got married and the German invasion in the area occurred, and there was, as you probably have heard stories, there was a lot of hardship and starvation in the cities and all that. We had relatives from the cities come and live with us, and we planted the gardens and we had livestock, and we didn't really suffer any from the at least any hardship from the war. There was a lot of other hardships afterwards because of the German invasion, but that's how we ended up in the village of Labinou. That's where I grew up.
And then when you enter adulthood, you move to another city, to a larger city.
Yes. Well, I attended when I finished the elementary school, I attended the high school, the Emboriki Scholi, as it was known at the time, the commercial high school in Tsagarada. And I always aspired to travel. My grandfather, my father's father, was a captain. He had his own two-masted schooner, his own kaiki, with which he had traveled as far as Egypt and Italy. So I was good. So after I attended the commercial high school, I found out that I could, if I passed the entrance exam, I could enter a school for marine captains or marine engineers. And after 3 years of the commercial high school, I took the entrance exam and I entered the Σχολή Μηχανικών Εμπορικού Ναυτικού in Lamia. And I moved to Lamia for 4 years. And after I graduated from there, I went to sea for a number of years. And that's how I ended up in the United States. I did not jump ship, or it was not really intentional. It was what would one call kismet. That it was. I was a young independent man, and whenever my bank account would get to the healthy stage, I would sign off the ship and play tourist. And it was during one of those tourist excursions that I was in New York in January.
Which year? Which year was that?
That was 1965. That was completely, I don't know how much time you have. You are interested in me telling you how this happened, but
Of course, we have time.
It was January. I was between ships. I had signed off one ship and I was waiting for the other to come. And as a good tourist, I got up about the same time my grandsons just got up and went and had breakfast. And then I went to see a movie on, I was staying on 47th Street in Manhattan. And over there on 48th, I think, in Broadway was a place, a theater that was showing Greek movies. So I went to see the movie, and the guy said, well, man, it's a detective story. You don't want to see that. It's going to be finished in about half an hour. Why don't you come back and see it from the beginning? I said, yeah, you got a point, thank you. And I went across the street where the Union Hall was for the Greek merchant seamen who used to hang out over there and get free coffee and catch up on the latest maritime gossip. And while I was there, a phone call came, and it was from a man in Miami whom I knew from before. It was a chief engineer with whom I had sailed before on a cruise line. And he called the union representative looking for an engineer. He said, well, there's no engineers over here at the moment, only Theodore Pitsios, but he's playing tourist. He's not looking for a job. Oh, he's there, let me talk to him. So the guy was an elderly man. First, he chastised me. He said, you are spending your hard-earned money again. You'll be sorry if you ever manage to reach my age. You know, so, and then he told me that there was a Greek freighter that had run aground during the Hurricane Betsy on a beach in front of a big hotel. And he said, the salvage company that's trying to pull it off, they're looking for some Greek engineers because all the labels and machinery are in Greek and all the instruction manuals are in Greek. So he said, they hired me and I'm looking for a helper because the fellow that was talking was of advanced age and he was not up to overexert himself. So, come on, man. I said, I got the ship. I'm not looking for, oh, come on, man. The pay was above the regular pay. And the weather is nice. The women are swimming naked over here. They dive off the stern of the ship. I think I was at the LaGuardia airport before he even hung up. So, and during the process of the salvage operation, I met the lady that ended up becoming my wife. She had the habit of coming to the beach in her yellow polka dot bikini. And all my highfalutin ideas about retiring somewhere in the south of France or in south of England and all that went out the window. We married about a year later, and we stayed married for 51 years until sickness took her away.
So I guess you never saw the movie that you wanted to see in New York.
Yeah, just
Then you
think,
had a great new scene there to open.
just think, if the guy said, "Oh yeah, go on ahead," I would have seen, and I would have not been here.
It was a time where most of the Greeks in New York used to live in Manhattan at that time. Astoria
Yes,
was in the beginning of the formation of Astoria in the mid-60s, but the majority of the Greeks, they used to live in Manhattan.
Manhattan and Washington Heights.
So you met a lot of Greeks there. They had shops. Can you describe some of the, the atmosphere? How were
Yes,
the Greeks? How were the Greeks at that time?
yes. We used to stay at a hotel. It was called Hotel Rex, which was owned by some Greeks who apparently he had connections with the shipping companies, because most of the clients there were Greeks, seamen or other Greeks who at the time were in transit between going or coming from Greece. At that time, a lot of people would travel with passenger liners. The Olympia used to go frequently back and forth. And a lot of people would stay there. And around Manhattan, there were many Greek restaurants. There was one very well-known restaurant called Morphetas. It was a typically Greek restaurant with the hot buffet where all the dishes are, and you go over there and point it out what you wanted. And there was also a lot of other ones around. And of course, the nightclubs downtown, all that. Yes, there was.
Before you tell us a story with your wife, because it's a very romantic story, and would like to hear it. So you you knew the language already, and was your wife a Greek or a non-Greek?
Okay. The language I spoke pretty adequately. First, thanks to the gentleman, Mr. Cabanares, who was my teacher in English in high school. And through the years, I could communicate quite well. My wife was not of Greek ancestry. I was introduced to her by her aunt. They were all Americans, Scottish, Irish, French, whatever Americans are made of. She was on her last year in high school, and she had written as a term paper on her last year. The term paper was on mutiny on the Bounty. And I think that's what attracted her to me. When we were introduced, there was a bona fide merchant seaman, with an exotic accent and all that. And we hit it off quite well. And like I said, we were married for 51 years.
So, but how you were received a non-American and without American papers, right? How you were received by her family? It was some kind of discrimination in general, or the family was more open to non-Americans? How was the situation?
Well, yes and no. Her family, all her family, with the exception of her father, all her family were, I was a curiosity item. There was a person who spoke funny English, as they called, and all that. But they were all nice and polite and courteous. And her father was not too thrilled about the. He at the time they were. Her parents were, my wife's parents were divorced, but her father used to come around the house. And a few times when I went to pick her up during our dating period, he happened to be there. And a couple of times he told her loud enough for me to hear it, couldn't you find a white boy to date? So that kind of describes. The irony of the fact was that after we got married and all that, the father used to be a commercial fisherman who he fished during the winter down in South Florida, and during the summertime, he used to come up to the New Jersey area and do commercial fishing for two Greek brothers that had a fleet of. And a few years after we were married, her father had a stroke, and the two brothers took care of him, looked after him, nursed him, and they looked after him. And after that, his opinion about the Greeks improved.
This is interesting because you had no relatives here, although
No
Chagarada,
relatives, no relatives.
which is a beautiful place in Mount Pelion in Volos, had a lot of immigration experience. A lot of people went to Alexandria,
To
or
Egypt, yes.
Egypt in general, and it was very progressive because the people who went abroad, they gave something back. They built schools, or as you said, you learn English in a mountainous village in 1940s and 50s. This is a unique situation. So you knew nobody. You had no relatives here. It was all by yourself.
No, actually, if you want to hear something a bit funny, during our wedding day, we my wife did all the wedding planning and all that, and we were getting married at a little chapel that was on the same block where her house was. And at that time we were living I was living in the Bahamas, and I came to West Palm Beach for the wedding. And I stayed at a hotel that was across on an island, on Singer Island, as they call it, which was connected with the mainland with a movable bridge. And the day of the wedding, me and my best man, that was the only one from my side of the family, were staying at the hotel. We got in the car and we started towards the church about half an hour before we were supposed to be there. But it only took the church was right across the canal. So when we got up to the bridge it was open, had opened for a yacht to go under it, and then it got stuck. And it took them over an hour to repair the bridge, to close it. So when I got to the church was packed. Not one single person from my side of the family. My wife's two brothers were sweating bullets. And everybody was giving us, every one of those parishioners sitting there fanning themselves. They were giving ads that I got cold feet and headed south.
So But there was a community, a Greek community further down in Tarpon Springs. You had any connection with the Greek community or other Greeks in the area?
No, Tarpon Springs, I heard about it. I didn't know. In my earlier years of marriage, I did not have too much dealings with the Greek community. I had after we got married, we lived in the Bahamas for 2 years. I was working there for a construction company. And there was a big Greek community, which are actually, they were the descendants of the sponge diving groups. And I had some dealings with them. They have a Greek church there, and we went to the church a few times. But after when the job in the Bahamas finished, we moved back to West Palm Beach. And then I started meeting people from the Greek community.
So, and all this time, you had a chance to get some news from home, from your relatives, from your friends.
We
Or
correspond.
did you also travel? You went to Greece at some point to visit?
No, we correspond frequently, and it was about 12 years before I went back to Greece.
And you went to Tsagarada, you went to Pilion?
Of course, yes.
How the people receive you there? You went alone or with your wife?
That is interesting also. No, I went alone. My wife went first. By that time, I was working for a firm, a marine consulting firm, and we got a job in Norway, a long-term job. And while I was there, I brought my wife, and at that time I had 2 children. They came with us because it was summer and school was out. And the plan was to all of us to go together to Tsagarada and visit with him. But then the job kept prolonged, keep dragging on. I could not leave. So we decided, okay, my wife and children would go there and I'll meet them there. As it turned out, that didn't work out and they ended up at the end of their visit returning to the States, and then I returned by myself. So my wife, who spoke very limited Greek, she got along quite well. She impressed all the relatives with her charm, and the kids were nice and cute and young and lovable, and everybody was happy. I went afterwards, after the night.
And of course, they enjoy their summer in
Pilion. Oh, yes.
And then, where do you live now? How you ended up in the new place of residence that you are now? Tell us about it.
I ended up because of the job. When I came back from the Bahamas to the States, and I was trying to get a job on my field, but I couldn't find anything, and I ended up buying a restaurant. And I ran that restaurant for a year. Up to that point, the only experience I had of restaurants was as a customer. So, but through the help of some guys from the Greek community of West Palm Beach, I kept me and my wife were the cooks and operators of the place. And after that, I got a job at the shipyard in Port Everglades, and I worked there for about a year, and then the place went bankrupt. And the shipyard here in Mississippi was hiring. So I moved to Mississippi. And at the same time, I decided to go back to school, and I was attending the University of South Alabama here in Mobile. So Mobile was a convenient place to live. And that's how I ended up in Mobile.
You found any Greeks there?
Oh, yes, there is a big Greek community here. We have two Greek Orthodox churches here in the area.
And usually, what is the occupations in the food industry? Diners, coffee shops?
Okay, the older Greeks, they were in that type of business. But now they diverse. Their children get into they go to college, all that, they get other professions, and there is not any Greek style restaurant now. There are a few that are Greek owned, but in the early years when I first moved, and a few years before I moved here, there were many Greek restaurants here. But
it is some kind of, let's say, understanding that the American South is a little bit
prejudice.
Prejudice, yeah. They have intolerance, a higher degree of intolerance against immigrants. And the Greeks, when they first came, they were considered, as you said, exactly whites or exactly,
Well,
part of the Anglo-Saxon culture. How was the situation there? Or this is not really true?
well,
That
I lived in this area 1972, and it was not too long after the Cuban Missile Crisis. So anyone who heard me speaking with an accent, immediately their question was, "Are you Cuban? Are you Cuban?" Now yes, the foreigners, the Southerners actually, they do have the expression that anyone who's not a foreigner is not considered white. Or one incident while I was working at the shipyard in Mississippi, after a few months I was promoted to supervisor, and one day one of the section supervisor came by, and we were talking about the work that we were doing, and he noticed my accent. He said, "You're not from around here, are you?" So I said, "No, I'm Greek." "Oh," he said, that rich fellow of yours, what's his name? He married that white woman, the Kennedy girl." I said, "Yeah,
he meant on Nazis.
Yeah. He meant on Nazis, yeah." But so in many years ago, some other a person that we were very good friends, and we were talking about another individual. He was a second generation Greek, and we were talking about him. And he said, "Oh, is he Greek? I didn't know. I didn't know he was white." "Oh no, is he Greek? I thought he was white." So yes. Now, of course, the South is not as much as it used to be. It gets integrated pretty much as everything else, gets.
And also the community is part of the American society, right?
Yes.
Of the South. You feel that it is some kind of acceptance all these years.
Yes. Now in our church, for instance, here we have most of the parishioners, most of the Greek parishioners are second generation Greeks, are born here. There are very few that authentic imported Greeks. And also now, since it's the only Orthodox church here, we have other ethnicities, Romanians, Bulgarian, Balkans, and a lot of converts, a lot of Americans who converted.
So this in the early days, because of the American South and the intolerance against foreigners, that kept the community together. It was a close knitted community, and that has changed. How do you evaluate the presence of the Greek community there? It was closer then, and now it's more assimilated.
Yes, it is more assimilated now because, like I said before, most of the Greeks now are born here, second generation. And even those who do come from Greece as immigrant, they are more educated and all. So it's not as it was the old days. When I first sailed, some old timers that used to tell me about the Greeks in New York, they would be, their primary job would be either dishwashers or shoe shiners. And the thing was, 10 Greeks make a nigger. That was before World War II. And then after the war, when we defeated the Italians and all that, then we got elevated in the
how you identify yourself as a Greek, as a Greek American, as an American, and also I would like to know, although you were in a very American environment, either your occupation or your family, your wife that wasn't Greek, how you kept the Greek language in good tact?
Well, that is a little bit, I need to make a correction here. I did not keep my language in good order. When I first went to Greece after 12 years away, it used to be the, especially the young nieces and nephews, those who were not aware what flattery can do to one's allowance. They used to say, come, let's listen to the uncle speak funny. So, but how I identify myself? It is, yes, I am a person that was born in Greece and lives in the States. It's now globalization has homogenized everybody. I do have relatives in Greece. I go there once a year at least. I have property. I have brother and sister there, and so, and I stay in close contact with everybody. And now the modern technology has made communicating much easier. My sister was really shocked when we had the first Zoom teleconference, and she was crossing. She said, "You know what I meant?" So I remember when they first brought the first telephone in the village, in the Chagarada, in the coffee house. It was one of those crank jobs, and 3/4 of the conversation was hello, Marcus, Bros, Marcus. Πότε θα έρθει τα γίδια μου να πάρεις, πότε να τα γίδια, δεν σε βρίζουμε. Τέλος πάντων, it's amazing how, you know.
So, what is your sense about the future of the Greek American community in America and in the South in particular, which is a very special case, the American South? They're going to continue to identify themselves as Greek, although you have second and third generation. Do they visit Greece, the American-born Greeks?
Well, I'm not a prophet, but eventually there will come a time, if the globe survives and we don't blow it to smithereens, it will come a time where borders will not matter. Culture, origins will be for tourist consumption. Now, for instance, you can pretty well go anywhere. You can communicate in English pretty much with everybody. And the Greek community, as well as all the other communities of other ethnicities, are slowly, absorbed into the country. You see more and more often marriages of different ethnicities. We have here now Greek Fest, which we originally started as one-day event. Now it's a 3-day event because large attendance, and it is very well received by the community. So the future of it will be, like I said, if we survive again, it will absorb. I don't think it will be the Greek language, for instance, the perpetuation of the Greek language. It's not going to be. It is much more convenient for the children to speak English, and
Do you know if members of the community visit Greece? Do they visit Greece in the summer or otherwise?
Yes, a lot of, and also we have through the church, we have a program where they go to Greece in the summer. So they do a lot of members, but not as much. It's not. It was the older days. Kids, the children would visit, but now they like my grandson. He is a good altar boy. He goes to church. He goes to the Greek school and all that. But most of his friends and all that Americans, Irish, Italian Americans, and so forth. So
you say something about the new technology, how the technology can break down borders in the space. In many Greek American communities all over the States, they receive TV programs from Greece directly, and they watch the news, musical programs, educational programs. Is this something that's happened in Alabama? Do the Greek community?
Yes, there is some people who receive antenna television, and I myself quite regularly read the Greek newspapers. I read Thessalia quite almost every other day.
from Volos, right? The newspaper
Yes,
in Volos.
yes,
There are two,
yes,
Thessalia and Tachydromos, the two
yes.
historic newspapers in Greece, in Volos. And then at some point, although you are an adventurer, you are a person of the merchant marine, you're an engineer, you decide to sit down and write a book. How that happened?
Well, in a professor of the University of South Alabama, who was also a family friend, was holding a creative writing seminar, an after hours creative writing seminar. And I opted to I opted to attend to improve my vocabulary. That way I could speak more correctly and I wouldn't be embarrassing my wife. And the assignment on the classes was to write some short stories every week. And he happened to like my short stories and he encouraged me to write on. And that was about the time the book Angela's Ashes came out. And I decided to write a book
about the Irish immigration, McClure. Yeah, that's
yes.
very nice.
So I decided to write a book about Greeks, and immigrants and all of them. That's how the Bellmaker's House came about. So I find it, I find it relaxing with a sharp pencil and a good eraser, you can create empires. You can, create heroes, do supernatural things. My guy tells his boss to take his job and shove it, and then he goes down the block and gets a job that makes twice as much. In real life, you don't do that. Before you tell your boss to take the shove it, you think about the kid that needs braces, the car that you are behind, and so forth. So kind of relaxing.
This is how you write with a pencil and paper, or use the
I
computer.
figure now, of course, I'm taking advantage of the cut and paste.
Yeah, I would like you to tell us more about the writing process. You write during the day, during the night,
I write
elsewhere.
in the morning, usually at the house here. Right now, we are conducting this at my beach house. I have a house in a small town called Orange Beach, which is about 51 miles east of Mobile, Alabama. So since my wife's passing, I live over here permanently now. So when I write, I usually write early in the morning. I sit by the window and with one finger. Sometimes when the inspirational overruns me, I use two fingers and type away.
Let's say the titles of your books and when you wrote them, how long it took, and when they were published.
Well, the first one was published in 2002, I think it was, published by Cosmos Publishing.
Which is here, right, in New Jersey, right?
Yes. Cosmos Publishing. It was around 2000, I think. And then the second one a few years later, and then the third one, which has been out now 1 year.
The first was this is the title of your first book, right?
Yes.
The Bellmaker's House, And this
Yes.
is a real house that exists in
That
Mount
is
Pitsios.
the real belt maker's house, which still stands.
And,
Last time I was in Sakarada.
and the title of the second book
The
is
title for second book is Searching for Ithaca. And the third one is Walking in the Light. It's from the Gospel of John.
I want to know who is Nick Pitsios. It is you or is a persona that you
It's okay. It's fiction. The book is fiction. It derives from personal experience or from experience that I'm immediately aware of. But it's about an immigrant who returned to his village, and he thought he had it made. He thought he would show off to the other people. But of course, life in the village had not stood still waiting for his return. So, and all his friends and all that, they all had their own success stories to demonstrate. So he decides to buy the bellmaker's house and renovate it. And so,
But how you created Nick Pitsios? It is partially you. It is an autobiographical. In this
no,
book?
it's not autobiographical. It was written in the first person because in my classes, I had difficulty maintaining points of view. I kept shifting from omniscient to third person, first person, and so forth. So my instructor said, pretend you have a camera on your head and you narrate what you see. So, and I tried that, and that seemed to solve the problem. And so that's why everything is written as I instead of he. So in retrospect, that was a mistake. It caused me, after the book came out, it caused me to sleep on the couch for quite a few nights because the wife thought it was indeed autobiographical, and the reason I married her was to get the green card. So despite lots of assurances, lots of flowers and so forth, I think there was still deep inside here a possibility that might indeed be the case.
Is the book optimistic or pessimistic? Because it is all this great adventure, all these dreams, all this struggle, and then cancer, then sickness. You know, it was very catching, and it depends
Yes.
how you read it. It is, and then a new vision about what really matters in life. Tell us more about this book. Yeah.
Well, it is kind of realistic. That's how life is, isn't it? Not everything happens, not everyone lives happily ever after. So I try to be realistic about it. I don't know what else to say about it.
You would like to read a passage or so from the book?
Yeah, I was going to read a passage of the third book. The second book is about, I don't know how much you look into it. It's about someone who worked in Volos at an usery, and then he found it necessary to get out of town quickly. And so, of course, as you say, if you read in that usery where he was working, there were a lot of people who retired from the States and they over embellished their successes and all that. See, when I was growing up, there was the saying was about America. They they tie the dogs with the sausage. Then τα σκυλιά με τα λουκάνικα. There is even a song about that. So anyway, when the guy decided to get out of town, he got on the ship, and when the ship got to America, he decided to jump ship. And he weaved his way from New York down to Miami, where he got a job in Little Havana. The third book is what happened to him after he got that job. And he interacts with other immigrants from other places, you know, and it's a humble attempt, I guess, to show that people from all ethnicities are all the same. They all have the same goals, the same aspirations, the same. It's the politicians that try to. So I was planning to read a passage from the third book, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
More than one part. Like to document your voice with your books.
Okay. On the third book, this passage I'm going to read is about from page about 30 or something there. It's our hero has jumped ship, has arrived, and this is his first day of the restaurant is working with the greasy spoon that's owned by a Greek. So, the man with the bow tie returned from the kitchen, pushing him up in a galvanized bucket of wheels. He had put on a yellow plastic apron, and his eyes expressed tiredness and resignation. That's Julio, Steve said, nodding towards the old man. He cleans here before I open up. If you listen to him, he'll tell you he was some big lord in Cuba, a real aristocrat with a name 2 meters long. He took a sip of his coffee, then got off the stool and walked towards the kitchen. Time to get ready, he said. He went over to the grill and turned on the gas. Then he took out an apple pie and a key lime pie from the walk-in cooler and handed them to me. Put them in a case out front. The apple pie was uncut, but of the key lime, only 2 old, shriveled pieces were left in the tray. I put them in the case next to the cash register and went back in the kitchen. Steve handed me the pumice stone. Here, start scraping the grill. Then, as we just remembered, he added, I've got to go pick up something from the apartment. Here's a $5 to pay the Lord if I'm not back by the time he's done. Make sure he mops everything. He put the $5 bill next to the grill and went out. In the dining room, I heard him shout, You know my bathroom yesterday. I pay you for a whole shop, Julio. I know, sucker. Yes, Mr. Stephen, answered the old man. I finished cleaning the grill, refilled my coffee, and for a while I watched Julio working. He moved the mop over the floor with gentle, measured strokes, as if conducting an invisible orchestra. Without the mop and the apron, he could pass for a banker or a professor. How's everybody at home, Senor Julio? Carmen asked from behind the counter. Difficult, Senora Carmen. My sister cannot get work anywhere, so she stays home, looks after the baby. How old is your granddaughter now? She became 4 last month, Senora. He stopped mopping and straightened to rub his back with his right hand. She's become a beautiful young lady. It is sad her mother cannot see her. Today is exactly 3 years from the day of the disaster. It seems like yesterday, said Carmen. At least she has the 2 of you to raise her. My sister does the raising. I contribute very little. I go back in the kitchen, and a few minutes later, Julio came in, pushing the mop bucket. I finished, he said. He stood holding the mop handle with both hands, breathing hard. What did you do in Cuba, Senor Julio? I asked. I was director of the customs office in Havana. he let out a sigh. I had a big house in the city and a plantation by the sea. His voice had the same pain and nostalgic tone I had heard from the refugees in Greece when they described what they had left behind in Asia Minor. Many people worked my plantation, the old man continued while staring into the mud bucket as if he could see beyond the muddy water. I have beautiful friends, beautiful horses, and beautiful life. Every weekend have big parties at my plantation, and many important people come. Professores, artistas, oficiales from the government and from the university. He raised his hand and looked at me. Now I have nothing. Castro take everything. Over here, nobody will give an old man a job. He started towards the storage area with slow, defeated steps, pushing the mud bucket ahead of him. All the refugees of the world must be thinking the same, I thought. When the Turks kicked the Greeks out of Asia Minor, the Greek government had settled those who washed up on its shores in places shunned by even the most destitute of the locals. And all of the shanty towns and desolate villages where they settled did not even remotely resemble the places they had before. They gave their new towns the names of the ones they had left behind. New Smyrna, New Mudanya, New Ionia, New whatever. And for the rest of their lives, as they struggled to scrape by, every one of them would lament the loss of the old riches. The anger, the pain of having something cherished taken away, and the desperate desire for respect magnified and even gave brilliance to everything they had before. Every hovel became a mansion. Every thorn-congested piece of scrubland was a plantation. At the outskirts of my village, in a one-room stone cottage, lived Nicholas Panerov. He and my father were among the masses of refugees managed to get out of Smyrna. He married a woman with no dowry, and for the rest of his life, he struggled to raise crops among the rocks of an almost vertical mountain plat. The more the locals snubbed him, the bigger became the mansion and the wheat fields and the olive groves he had left behind. Senor Julio took off the yellow plastic in April and hung it on a nail. He washed his hands, combed his wavy white hair, and came back to the kitchen. I handed him the $5. Muchas gracias, patron, he said boldly. He put the money in his pocket and started to walk out. Hasta mañana. A moment later, a thought prompted me to call out before he got to the door. Un momento, Senor Julio. I went to the display case, got the 2 slices of key lime pie, put them in a box, and handed it to her. For the granddaughter, I said. Carmen was cleaning the counter at the far end, and I wondered if she would tell Steve. Muchas gracias, patron, he said. Muchas gracias. He held the box with both hands and slowly walked out. Through the glass door, I watched him shuffle across the parking lot. The Cuban Nicholas Panerov.
Very moving story. So you create very vivid images, you know, and the writing is direct. The dialogues, you know, they are real dialogues, right? How you get there? It's a process because you have some influences for certain authors, some writers, and you like their style. How you reach your style of direct dialogues like this, strong and vivid?
Well, I'm also involved heavily in the theater here, the local theater, community theater. I get parts into acting and all that. And I envision the scene as I see it in my head. And the dialogue as they're speaking. Most of my material comes from things that I am personal familiar with. So the people talk like the people I know how to talk.
Yeah, it's
So,
a very important rule. Write about what you know. Right?
yes, yes. So that's
So you see it also as a director in theater, right? You see like creating this
yes.
action, right? That's very interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. And do you have you set a program? Say, well, it will take me X weeks or months to finish it, or you leave it open.
No, I don't. I don't. This is a hobby, so I don't have any deadlines to meet. So I finished the third book. Now I have finished my memoirs, and right now they're aging at the bottom of the drawer. Uh, I don't think they're quite ready for show and tell yet.
How your work is received by the Greek American community or the American community? Do you have usually an audience in your mind?
uh, yes, usually I visualize telling my story to a colleague or someone. I assume it has most of the people they have said that they read the books, they said they liked. Uh, uh, it was not intended, and that's a good thing. It was not to be a primary means of revenue for me. Had it been the case, I would have been a very skinny person. So,
So,
but
do you think that the Greek Americans are also readers? Do they read? Do they know other Greek American writers or poets?
I don't know. There is, I mean, I know of quite a few Greek American writers, but they write in English for American audience. One of my favorite is Nicholas Gage, who wrote HELLENIC, and also my favorite of his. He wrote a lot for the American public. I think his best work was A Place for Us. I don't know if you read it.
Yeah.
His daughter is also a writer. She has written some books, and she even put a blurb on my third book. And although there's quite a few other, there's Pelekanos is one of the most famous, and there is also another one from, I think originally from Alabama, and Andrews, he writes mystery, and of course Eugene Evgenidis and his name.
So what you said he writes for an American audience. What makes a piece of work in literature a Greek American theme? You have to be Greek, or you have to do with Greek American themes. So what makes us, identify with a particular ethnic group as writers?
Well, in my case, identify because that's what
Yeah, because you are Greek. Yeah.
but it's something that it appeals to all people. There is a lot of people from different nationalities. There is a lot of successful authors from Haitian origins, from Latin American origins, and so forth. And their work appeals to all of them, although their subject might be just anonymous. Most of my heroes and so forth are Greek origin because that's the ones I know best. But
I see. Is there any other passage you would like to read for another book, maybe,
if
if you feel
well,
like?
you want to,
Yes, okay.
I don't want to take up too much time.
One more passage would be great. And so your plan is to continue writing and publishing.
Well, not really. Like I said, I just finished memoirs, and they are sitting in the bottom of the drawer. And occasionally, I look them for it. And maybe in a year or so, I might release them. Right now, their primary purpose is to use as information for the grandkids. So it let's see. I try to think what
How long do it take to finish a book?
oh, for this it looks like it's forever. It's a couple of years, at least a couple of years. Let's see. Trying to find something here. I was not prepared to read, and I did have another place, another passage. What do you want? Which one you want me to read from? The first or the second or the third?
Yeah, the first, the Chagarada thing, of course. Yeah,
Sagrada. Okay.
the Mount Pelion situation, because it's also
Okay.
my hometown. Do you ever thought to repatriate, to return to Greece and live there?
No. Like I said, I go over there once a year, sometimes more often. But now my children are settled here. My grandchildren are here. So I was over there for the Christmas holidays. I spent a month there, and I might go back again next September for a month. I have the house and I use Dimitrios, which right now just stays, unused.
Do your friends and relatives in Greece that they know about your books? Do they?
Yes, some, yes. As a matter of fact, I had some interviews with a couple of radio and television. Okay, let's read from the Bellmaker's house, the first, chapter 1, in the beginning. The year is 1952. It's a Friday morning in early autumn on the eastern side of Mount Pelion in Greece. In the village of Taxiarchis, in the dusty schoolyard bordering the Patekas apple orchard, a group of boys is engaged in a soccer match. It has been going on for half an hour, fast, intense, and noisy. There are 5 players on each team, in short pants, scruffy and sweaty, most of them barefooted, and all of them around 13 years old, except Nikos Pitsios, the goalie. He is 2 years younger than the rest. At present, he is focusing all his attention on the ball advancing towards him under the control of Yannis Giannakos, the forward center of the attacking team. His eyes are locked onto the ball, his back hunched, palms open, and he is making short, springy, in-place jumps as Yannis, eluding the defenders one by one, is getting closer. To Nikos, all that exists at that moment is the semi-deflated, patched-up ball propelled by a pair of bare feet. He doesn't see anything else, nor does he hear any of the shouting around him. Stopping Yanis from scoring is to Nikos the most important thing in the world. The opposing guard is closing in on Yanis, but Yanis fakes to the left, and then there is no one between him and Nikos. He glances up, another fake move to the right, and this time, and with the left foot, kicks the ball to the upper left corner of the goal. Nikos springs like a tiger on a gazelle. With his clenched fist, he deflects the ball, sending it over the goalpost towards the apple-loaded tree in the Patekas orchard behind him. As he falls to the ground, he hears the sweet music of his teammates' cheers and Yanis cursing. You will be a hero again, and that's worth a scratched up knee and a bruised shoulder.
Again, very vivid and real images. Αγαπητέ Θεόδωρε, Mr. Theodore Pitsios, thank you very much. And I would like to conclude if what would be your, not advice, but your thoughts, your experience to a young immigrant now, or to a young writer, something you would like to share, to what you wish to tell them, you know?
Well, a young writer of any nationality, I would advise him to write about things he enjoys, about things he likes, and about things that he knows. And to write because he enjoys writing, not as a means of revenue. To a young immigrant, I would advise to learn as much about the place where he's migrating to, of the language and the customs, and that's about it, actually. It is actually an advice that applies to everyone, immigrant or non-immigrant. Somewhere in the passage in my third book, when the hero announced that he would like to immigrate to the States, somebody says, well, those who have it in them, they can make it anywhere where God put them. You're trying to go away is as if you're trying to hide your incompetence among strangers, which is not always the case. Let's see, what somewhere in here in your questionnaire you had what do I think? Yeah, what Greece means to you and what America means. That's a good question for poets and philosophers. Ordinary people like me, it kind of have a hard time coming up with long-winded answers. To me, Greece is a place where I was born. I have relatives there, I have property, and I have fond memories. Consequently, I follow the progress in the country with interest. And America is a place where I live, where my family is, where I earn my living, and consequently, I have interest. There is.
You find it compatible to be a Greek, to feel Greek, and also to feel American.
Yes.
There's a synergy there. Yeah.
Yes. There is a lot of people say, ask whether are you proud to be Greek and all that. Well, I have some strange opinions about it. Pride is something that one is entitled to if he has done something great, something important, something beneficial. I have done neither one of those things. I consider myself fortunate that I was born that I consider myself fortunate that the stork saw fit to drop me down Kiramarigula's chimney in Sagarada instead of Mogadishu or somewhere else or Haiti. And I'm fortunate that I had many ancestors that did great things, but I had nothing to do with it. And that is that.
This is good. This is good. Thank you very much. Here from Queen's College and the Hellenic America Project, we're very, pleased today and happy to have this very interesting conversation and know more about your immigrant experience and, of course, your adventure in writing books. Thank you very much, Mr. Pitsios. Αγαπητέ Theodore. Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ.
Thank you, Nicholas. How did you find out about me?